actually in the screen?
Yep, you're right in the bullseye middle. And it's recording. Don't worry.
Come on.
But you're not smiling.
Oh, I'm not ready to shoot yet. Hey there everyone, been a little while, FG here, back at you again with another crazy project. So this one turned out to be quite a bit of a challenge. As you can see, what you're looking at here is brand new, so you're probably like, hey, wait a minute, why didn't you start the video before? Yeah, so I did this last night starting a little bit after 6 p.m. And ended up wrapping up about 8:40 when the sun was just starting to disappear over here in Maryland. It was quite an adventure. So as you can see, this is a lift shackle. Brought the spring up, so the idea is to get the rear up in the air a little bit more, because when the new coilovers get installed, they're going to hopefully even out the ride height. And like I said, this turned out to be quite an adventure. This is quite a bit longer than the original stock piece, which I'll show you in a second. Okay, so here's the original. As you can see, it's actually bent a little bit, which is kind of unusual. I didn't actually notice that until I got a look at it. So I don't know if I bent it taking it out or what exactly happened there. But if you look over here, see if I can get an angle here. The piece is flanged through, but if you look back over here, you can see that there is a little bit of a gap, which is kind of weird. I didn't even notice that until I just started the video here and pulled this out. Anyway, so if you look at these two, you can see there's a substantial difference in size. The other thing you'll probably notice is that this thing has 3 axles, and you're probably wondering what exactly is going on there. What is that thing? Well, this is a part that came from, I believe, Malaysia. I'll check that, but if I recall correctly, so that's for their home market in Navarra, and they end up building a lot of parts over there for these types of vehicles, and most of the parts from that vehicle are interchangeable with a D40. Their bodywork looks different, so you're not going to get any of the body panels to cross over, but the frame and running gear, for the most part, is either exact or very, very similar. So the idea with this thing, this is called a comfort ride shackle, and I've never tried one, so I'm really hoping that this works pretty well, because I really don't want to go through the whole thing and taking this out again. This turned out to be quite an adventure. As I mentioned earlier, it was about 2.5 hours of a wrestling match, and when I get the other side, the rear wheel off and the original shackle removed, I'll show you what was going on there. And I'm going to put a caveat right here. I did something which would probably qualify at best as what you might call backyard engineering. So I definitely take no responsibility at all for any kind of legalities if you decide to follow my action. I had to use my hydraulic floor jack to actually force the spring to move downward so that I could get the height from the frame to the spring to get this to put in there. So obviously you are compressing and retaining quite a bit of force. Not quite as bad as messing with coil springs, because coil springs are basically unretained at that point. If you're building a coilover or something, you're basically putting it in and reassembling the stack and then putting the top nut on, which is the point where it's very dangerous, because if the spring compressors let go, they can fly out with deadly force, and people have been killed by that. This one, at least, it is still on the truck, and it's retained by the shock absorber, the airbag, and the front mounting bolt. And so if the jack were to let go, it would be less potentially injurious, but still, anytime you've got force like that, which is trapped and wound up, you know, it can let go extremely fast. I don't care how fast you think your reflexes are, you would never outrun, or however you'd like to put it, a spring bouncing loose. So, as I said, I assume no responsibility at all if you decide to follow this action, because even in my book, it was kind of questionable. I was feeling a little iffy about it, but I couldn't figure out any other way. Unfortunately, to get around the problem without like removing the airbag and the shock absorber and trying to lower the whole axle that way. And I don't know what the condition of these bolts is. They are pretty rusty, and that could have ended up just, you know, spiraling into a much worse situation. I'm sure that all of us have been there. You take something off and you realize something else has to come off, and then something breaks and you're like, wow, that's great. Now I'm in 3 times more doo-doo than I was when I started. So we're going to roll on from here, and let me give you a little bit of a quick pan around. So I probably had the view sitting there long enough that you're probably bored. Going, hey, did the camera freeze? Alright, so you can see the upper mount up there. Pan back. I dropped the spare tire to get it out of the way, because there's basically no way that you're going to do this work with the spare tire in the way. And I found out that my whatever you'd like to call it, I guess it's really a winch, right? The spare tire winch was a little rusty. I don't think it had probably ever been down in the 7 years that this truck's been on the road. So it worked, but it was, if you pardon the spare tire joke, it was cranky. The crank was cranky. It did not want to completely extend. So I'm going to get up in there before I put the spare tire back and go ahead and lubricate the mechanism and the chain a little bit, because like I said, I think this has basically been just subjected to you know, salt water, snow melt off, and all of that happiness for about 7 years. So I'm going to pan over here, and you can be able to see the other side with the other shackle. Now that one had never been touched. This side over here, one time, oh, probably, it might be close to 2 years ago, I started this project and wasn't sure about the bushing sizes, whether the bolts were exactly the same, and that gave me a lot of angst because I had to have the truck running the next morning. So I stopped. So those bolts weren't quite as tight. So over here, I'll pan over and show you. This is what I used on the shackle bolts, the convincer, because they were really tight. And I'm sure that they have never been touched again since the truck was assembled. 100,000, yeah, I'm at 99.7 something or other. So yeah, basically 100,000 miles ago. So yeah, I used this little guy, which I just picked up actually last week, which turned out to be a good idea. I have another breaker bar, but it's shorter, so this one worked really nice. And you'll find out that a lot of things underneath of a truck after they get some age, yeah, they don't like to cooperate. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to start moving forward on this project. Now let me pan back a little bit, and you'll see a jack stand here. And if you notice in the view, let me see if I can move. Okay, if you look right to the side of the spare tire, you'll see there are 2 more jack stands underneath. Yesterday, in total, I had all 6 of my jack stands in play. Some people say that, you know, if you have a jack stand on each side, that's fine because it's supporting the weight of the vehicle. I don't really subscribe to that. I really prefer the idea of how NASA does things, where most of their equipment has a backup. So I put 2 jack stands. One of them is, you know, basically hard up against the frame and is actually carrying the load of the truck. The other one I put just slightly below, so that the 2 aren't fighting for, you know, whatever height. But if the first one, for whatever reason, were to fail, the idea is hopefully that the other one would catch that load and go ahead and still be supporting. So yeah, always safety first. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to show you something that probably doesn't subscribe to safety first. We'll get there in a moment. Okay, everyone, I'm back now. Heat and humidity are coming up here a little bit in Maryland, so if I sound like I'm panting a little bit, that's because I am. Sweating like a hog here. It's not super hot yet. It's supposed to hit a high of 87 today, but any of you know about Maryland Bay, you know, we're not that far from the water, and yeah, it gets pretty hot. Anyhow, let me move forward. So this is the sketchy part that I was talking about, and like I said, I'm not sure that I recommend you try this stunt. It's really up to you if you do. I'm taking no responsibility for it. Now, right now, this is actually safe because I already got the shackle mounted. The danger part is when the shackle is not mounted and all the stress is right here on the jack. So I'm about to release the jack. Nothing's going to happen because the shackle is in place. So the spring's just going to relax a little bit and it's going to take up its final ride height. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that out, but I just wanted to give you a visual of, like what I said, it's pretty backyard engineering. These are my Rhino ramps that I use for servicing the truck when the wheels are on. Each pair of these has a capacity of 5,000 pounds, so the truck is nowhere near the weight of you know, causing any trouble for these, even though, yes, I get they're plastic, but they're actually very heavy, and they're made for that kind of a load and in that kind of an abuse. However, like I said, this over here, this is a 1.5 ton aluminum racing jack, and I'm sure that it's not holding 1.5 tons because all I had to do was force the spring down, but you're still talking about hundreds of pounds of pressure trapped up in a piece of spring steel, which wants to get out. It doesn't like being constrained. So you know, that potentially could jump out and potentially could be pretty ugly. So let me show you underneath here. Like I said, everything's constrained now, so it's safe, but from here to here, you never want to have your fingers in this area while that spring is not retained by these heavy bolts, because if this thing let go, the jack slipped, this is going to bounce right off the bottom of the frame horn and your finger would be in between it, and I can pretty much guarantee that there would be bone pulp left at that point. I'm sure your finger would be broken. The question at that point would be, would it have to be amputated? I really have no idea. I'm not a doctor and I don't know about crush injuries, and I really don't want to find out firsthand. So this turned out okay because I used a little modicum of safety. Oh yeah, I also cut off my exhaust pipe. It was in the way. I really didn't feel like dealing with the hangers. This one did not come with a tip on it. I understand that maybe some of the earlier models, I think, had a chrome tip. This one never did, or at least it didn't in the time that I've owned it. So if it ever had a chrome tip, somebody removed it. So here's the cutoff piece. It was in my way and I was annoyed because it was ugly anyway and really messes up your departure angles. So I just took out my Milwaukee Sawzall and had at it. And now I'm betting that some of you are probably going to go, oh my gosh, you're going to get vapors up in the cabin, you're going to asphyxiate yourself, you're going to kill all your passengers. Well, no, not really. First of all, you can see it's way back here by the bumper. Any way that that's going to put vapor into the cabin, no. I mean, cars used to have side pipes. That, I would say, is a lot more of a danger because they exited right next to a window. They were under the cabin. This is way far from the cabin. Second of all, if you're talking about a 1968 Chevrolet C10 with a 350 small block and a poorly tuned carburetor that has that wonderful vintage car aroma of unburnt gasoline, yeah, those kind of vapors, sure, they're very dangerous. By the time this exhaust gas goes through 4 catalytic converters, it's pretty much inerted. Yes, there are still traces of gas that you really wouldn't want to breathe, and I'm not suggesting that I should fill the cabin with this. But as far as danger level, you're not even in the same ballpark as what cars were 60 years ago. So I'm not concerned about this. What I might actually do later is maybe take it over to an exhaust shop and actually just have them do a turn down tuck right over here in front of the trailer hitch, and possibly maybe even put some kind of a coupler in between, so it could be removed if it needed to, if this ever needed to be serviced, which hopefully it never will. Yeah, so this is exactly what it looks like assembled, and I'm just going to finish up torquing all these bolts to spec and go ahead and take the jack out and put the rear tire back on and get these jack stands out from underneath it here. And like I said, I'm going to lube the mechanism. There you can see the tiny winch, which is I guess that's welded. Yeah, no, I guess it is bolted. Yeah, bolted to the frame cross member there, and that's what runs your spare tire up and down. So I don't know if anybody has ever had the experience. They haven't had their spare tire out yet to have a look, but honestly, I've never dropped this one, so I didn't really know what the winch looked like. It's smaller than I thought it might be. Just some kind of little gear set in there that runs up and down on the chain. So there it is. So until next time, I don't think there's really anything else that I need to show. I mean, everybody knows how to remove and install a tire and things of that nature, so I don't think that's really anything exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video, and like I said, until next time, thank you for watching. We're almost at 700 subscribers, and I think we're somewhere around, well, actually, I'm going to have to go look at the statistics. I think we're 48,000 something or other views, so I'm pretty excited about that. We're still growing. It's going slower than I had hoped, but my understanding is that for YouTube these days, when there's so many people making so much content so quickly that there's thousands of hours posted every day, it's really hard to get people to find you. So all those that have subscribed and been loyal and following these projects, I thank you very, very much, because it's been quite a journey. It's been a year and a half now, and some days you lose heart. You look at your counts and you're like, wow, I got 60 views today. 60. It's like, is it even worth continuing? Some days you get disheartened and you're like, really, does anybody care? If I just folded up and said, you know what, I'm done with it, would anybody care? But obviously, since there's still views and there's still new people coming in, yeah, somebody does care. And I'm very, very thankful and glad that you all out there do. I probably will never know your names, and most likely will probably never meet you personally, but still, thank you, because you decided to take time out of your day to look at the craziness that I'm creating and possibly mimic some of that. So again, thank you. FG out. And if you didn't get out and get her dirty, if you have a four-wheel drive, you're not using it right. There's a big world out there. Go get her muddy.